Greetings, everybody, and welcome to my fan commentary latest on my Power Rangers Lost Galaxy commentaries as we tackle on Protect the Quasar Saber, 32 episodes into Power Rangers Lost Galaxy later. So as we touched about on from last time about how the show had the guts to kill off a Power Ranger, we really needed to see how things unfold. But as we know from this episode is notorious. Hey, that's that planet exterior used for Onyx, but on the planet Gwinnett. Yeah, there's no fooling Saban. Why are you going to name that planet knowing it's the same exterior used for Onyx? And that same Onyx midget alien we saw from last season in Flashes of Darkonda. Yeah, he's lucky he got the Quasar Saber. Yeah, as we learned, Kendrix is a Force Ghost. Maya, one of the few untapped potential things that I wish the show did and fully explain on is how on earth did Maya can see dead people. One of the few things that I really wanted to I really wish that the show should have tackled on more is Maya seeing visions of dead people. So she's technically Ghost Whisperer before Ghost Whisperer. Yeah, I know. Because it's just one of those aspects about her character that has never been explored upon besides her love for animals and, you know, her connection with Galactabeast and everything. Damon is so freaking stupid. What do you mean you don't know what they're talking about? You realize the pink Quasar Saber went missing? Yeah, but again, like I was saying, they should have tackled more on her seeing dead people, because it's like one of those few things that the show just never, ever had the time to explore about her. We got some tidbits about her background from Miranoi and her missing her planet, her going through homesickness, and one of those few things that they should have tackled on if they did another episode to her dedicated to the show before we got to the team up episodes. Sure, yeah, we had memories of Miranoi with her and Chandra, but Chandra was basically just an imposter of the real Chandra, and they never really explored on what happened to the real Chandra after we learned that Rykon is Maya's old best friend from Miranoi. And Loyax's last battle, yeah, sure, the sexism abound with Loyax, you know, downing her because she's a girl, but yet she's a Power Ranger. And personally, I never really did care for that episode. But okay, so we need to get back to main topic about with like the Pink Ranger saga, because how like Lost Galaxy really went that far and beyond in the line of Call of Duty to kill off a Power Ranger, and it was just something that a lot of us 25 years ago did not expect. And like I said last time, I didn't expect this as a kid neither, but the more I watched the season and now we learn about all the behind the scenes stuff, why it happened, now we see why they decided to go ahead and write Kendrix out, and they got to figure out who should take her stead as the Pink Ranger going forward. As for the Sentai adaptation choices for the monsters for the episode, Spicata was actually from an earlier episode of Ginga Man, which Villamax was a part of before. This was, of course, they had to adapt these suits out of sequence, because now that the show didn't have to deal with the difficulties of getting all these monster and villain suits in time for production, because Toei at the time was doing Ginga Man versus Mega Ranger, so it made sense that Lost Galaxy had to take things slow on adapting several of the monster and villain suits as much as possible. And yeah, and plus I do like this badass moment between Leo and Maya interrogating the midget guy, and basically Leo pulling off something that Batman would do. Do you get my point? Wow, that is so Christian Bale Batman, or any kind of Batman really. Kind of moment for a Red Ranger. It was obvious that it was Deviant that was imposing as this midget. No lie. And now recall in my commentary track for The Power of Pink last time, one of the reasons, before we even got what would become this episode, forging a friendship was the original pitch for this episode of how they were going to go ahead and do the new Pink Ranger element. Since Valerie Vernon had to leave the series due to her leukemia, Patricia Jolie was originally going to be slated to come back as her character of Cassie after, which, like I said before, it could have been her third Pink Ranger role, just like Catherine did during Mighty Morphin through Turbo. And honestly, forging a friendship was just a rough draft of what would become Protect the Quasar Saber. This has happened a couple of times in the original Saban era Power Rangers, and hearing about all these stories of unmade episodes and rough drafts of what would become the final episodes are interesting, because thanks to Ranger Wiki and what we hear from bells and whistles from cast and crew interviews, fans, and what was going on in the world of the franchise, now we know why Protect the Quasar Saber was originally going to be pitched as an episode where Cassie should have stayed on, retire from being In Space Pink, and she could have been Lost Galaxy Pink number 2, just like I said again, what could have been, because after all, Cassie did replace Catherine as the Pink Ranger during Turbo, just like how Catherine replaced Kimberly back in the 3rd season of Mighty Morphin. And semblances of Mighty Morphin season 3 here, but cut short, because as we see Karone peeking through, no surprise, who was our guest star coming back. And if you go back to some of the old promos for Fox Kids from 25 years ago, which you can find on YouTube if you're curious, there was a promo for Power Rangers Lost Galaxy that was during the summer hiatus when they were doing fall previews of shows coming back for Fox Kids, and as well as shows coming out like Digimon. And knowing at this point in Power Rangers, Lost Galaxy was doing strong at this half of the season, and that's why I loved it. But while ratings may have plummeted and declined because Saban wanted to promote Digimon over the rest of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, and it shows. And this is the final time that, speaking of Onyx, this is the final time we're going to see the Onyx Tavern after it's only been used for this and the previous episode of the season and only one episode of last season, and that was the end of it. However, recently in Boom Studios Power Ranger comics, the Onyx Tavern did have an appearance. From what I heard, the Omega Rangers, Jason, Zach, and Trini, as the Omega Rangers, was at the Onyx Tavern. And guess, no surprise, what Lost Galaxy villain alumni was there at that point? Villamax. Yeah, well, even though wait until I get around the Boom Studio comics, trust me. And in the look, the Piranhatrons. Again, it just raises questions like all of these recycled monster and villain suits from previous seasons, and some of the monsters that were previously been defeated by the Rangers this season. I don't understand, how did they come back after they've been destroyed? It's never explained. I figured that voice, the black and silver leather suit, and that outfit and that wig that looks similar to a black wig she had during the Ninja Turtles crossover from last season, Astronema. It's no surprise that Astronema, I was surprised. I knew this was going to put a smile on my face as a kid, that Astronema would be back, but this is just basically Karone pretending to be Astronema again, her with the black wig. And I actually always liked that black wig of Astronema, even if this was just only brief for this season, even though this is the same black wig she had during again the Ninja Turtles crossover with last season. And this is the moment I've been waiting for, 32 episodes since this show started. Trakina versus Astronema. Or, in other words, Trakina v Astronema, Dawn of Darkness. Suck it, Zack Snyder, and your Batman v Superman crap. This was basically Batman v Superman before that, but with Power Rangers. Well, with two female villains that are two of my favorite ones in the franchise anyway. It makes sense to bring Karone back, because seeing her and her Astronema get up one final time, and then next episode she faces against her former evil self as a spirit, and facing the past, it makes sense to bring Karone back, because she does deserve this redemption story. And one of the few themes I've always talked about with Lost Galaxy was the redemption themes for some of the characters. Well, Villamax, as we saw him fighting Karone a little bit, Villamax almost nearly got redemption, as we saw in the finale, but his redemption, like Treacheron before him, got cut short. I will discuss more of that when I elaborate on part 2 of Journey's End, because 25 years since this season, and 25 years since episodes like this and that, I think I need to elaborate more a little bit on it. Yeah, because, you know, originally, again, if this was still that Forging a Friendship episode, they could have adapted the idea of Cassie being the new Pink Galaxy Ranger, and the episode could have been Power Rangers' homage to Die Hard. If Terra Venture was on lockdown, Trakina and crew would invade the colony, the pink Quasar Saber. She would send Stingwingers and some random monster from Ginga Man for the episode. It had if Cassie stayed on, and this would have been that episode. But instead, I'm happy we didn't get that pitch of the episode of Protect the Quasar Saber. I mean, I don't hate it or anything. I'm just glad we never did got that episode. It just sounded all right on paper, but I like what we ended up getting instead. Well, that's a good throw. And you guys think Maya was the only Galaxy Ranger girl in the season with revealing cleavage? Karone. Well, since she got that sexy badass black leather, because again, the call back to her astronomer days makes sense. I must wonder that's how she made her black outfit now in her civilian form, is to make it less astronomer-ish and more her, and finally become something more than her evil past. And I'm happy they did that. Well, actually, Karone deserves the pink Quasar Saber. She was worthy. But again, some wish Cassie could have had it. But if Cassie stayed on it, Patricia Jolie should just accept that she was only paid as a guest star, not like one of the main cast. Her time as a Ranger full time was over. Oh shit. And this is another moment I was hoping for. Trakina finally squaring off against Karone. Again, this episode had a lot of notable and iconic highlights about this episode, and basically what describes and summarizes Lost Galaxy overall is the battle between two villain, well, one former villain and a current season female villain squaring off. And this was technically something that I've noticed. While this is still only a Power Ranger story, there was some elements taken from the Sentai, from one of the pre-Zoo Ranger Mighty Morphin Sentais, where one Ranger died and then they would get another one to take on the mantle of that Ranger suit. I'm going to assume that they took some of this out of Bioman, because I was just watching that Sentai a couple years ago, and some of this is very similar to how in Bioman this happened after when their first Yellow Ranger died, and then they had to get another girl to be the Yellow Ranger. But in Power Rangers, a decade and a half later, they would go ahead and do the same thing, but for the Pink Ranger slot, where the first Pink Ranger of this group dies, and then they have to get someone new worthy a worthy successor to take on the mantle of that suit and that sword and morpher. And I knew that, this battle between Karone and Astronema is just no brainer. You have to do it all on Vasquez rocks, man. And yeah, it's epic. Because, yeah, I love Trakina, but this is Karone's redemption. Trakina doesn't deserve no redemption at the end of the season. She's just too evil to be redeemed, like I've said many times, and some fans too, because I just love how badass Trakina is, and one of the reasons why. And of course, with one of her other iconic moments and lines from the episode and what's made of memes: never mess with Trakina. You damn right. because honestly, I knew that there was something about her that really got my, really one of the reasons why I've always loved Trakina so much is because I had related, even though she's a female character, but I kind of do see me in her sometimes, because given there was something in common between me and her, but knowing the fact she's a fictional character, I'm a real person. Her having Karone dangling for her dear life on Vasquez rocks, really, that is really I was like, I hope she doesn't die, because I just hold on dear, but I was really shocked and scared that she'll fall and meet her death, because I hope this doesn't end up like how in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, because this was just in that Bill and Ted movie when their evil selves threw the real Bill and Ted down the rocks, and then well, unfortunately, unlike Bill and Ted back in Bogus Journey, Kendrix is Force Ghost. Yeah, I know the Star Wars imagery in the season, and knowing the fact that this came out the same year as the Phantom Menace. Kendrix, his spirit takes Karone up to the air and gives her the transmorpher, and she becomes the new Pink Ranger. And when she became the Pink Ranger, even as a kid, and now 25 years later as an adult, this still puts a smile on my face seeing her finally square off against Trakina. And again, and like I said back when Hasbro announced a Power Rangers Lightning collection, and if they ever got around Lost Galaxy figures and stuff, if we're ever going to get around Lost Galaxy Pink someday in the collection, and if they ever do get around villains, because now that we got all six Lost Galaxy Rangers in the collection, yes, I mean 6, as in if you count the Magna Defender. I'm still counting Magna Defender as a Power Ranger. Oh, Karone's a Power Ranger now. Well, it was about time. It was worth the payoff after, well, yeah, it was a shock. It was surprised that no wonder, well, while ratings plummeted, this could have been the highest rated episode of the second half of the season, because just like the team up episodes in space with the Galaxy Rangers and with the last 2 episodes, but again, Saban chooses to go ahead and just promote Digimon over this half of the season because we had some really notable highlights here. This will be the final time we'll see Trakina face the Power Rangers until the end, because they had bigger plans to say. And also, this was when they were starting to save money on the finale. And this is at the point where, okay, they're going to save Trakina until the very end of the season. What plans they really had for her, as we shall see in the next 12 episodes from now. I must wonder, how did Karone even know how the Rangers use the Lights of Orion? Does she study how the Rangers use the power, use the Galactabees, or unless Andros somewhere in the events of this, but the end of the last episode and the beginning of this probably told him that, yeah, they got Galactabees, they got Lights of Orion, they got all this stuff. So maybe you should pull it off. I guess maybe Karone doesn't need training to be a Power Ranger. She, at one point when she was Astronema, she did impose as Ashley one time. And we'll never forget that. Yeah, everybody's getting excited. Yeah, save the celebration until the end, folks. We still got Trakina's monster terrorizing Terra Venture, and that's the episode until next time. Yeah, Iron Knight was from a much later Gingaman episode, so Spicata, they didn't need to use Sentai footage of him because he was from the episode that was already adapted for the first episode of the Lights of Orion saga. So there was no point for any Sentai footage of him. So Iron Knight. Now, this monster was probably a blue... If I go back and watch Gingaman again, it was probably a Blue Ranger episode from what I recall. I don't think it was a Pink Ranger episode. Well, this is a Pink Ranger episode, but in Gingaman, where the monster came from for this Megazord fight, it was probably a Blue or Green Ranger episode from what I last checked. Because again, I was just also streaming, live streaming Gingaman on Toku Shout's YouTube channel. Oh, new Galaxy Megazord, power up mode for the Lights of Orion footage. Also from the latter chunk of Gingaman before that show ended too. And I think starting with this episode of Lost Galaxy with Sentai footage, speaking of, this is when footage from Gingaman was starting to age pretty bad because some of the coloring and the fuzz and yeah, I don't know what was going on with the footage grading and stuff at the time when they were dubbing this footage over, because this is when the footage was starting to not look good for these last couple of episodes with Sentai footage, and it just looks, I don't know. But also I've noticed how the color, and there was also some bits of bad discoloring, or maybe this is just something from what I see on my TV screen, or as I'm connecting the commentary to watching the episode on YouTube during the recording of the commentary. I don't know. But yeah, I've noticed this little technical aspect because in later episodes, when we get to before the footage runs out and the Red Ranger in some shots will start looking orange in some places. Pink Ranger will look a little bleached out in the Sentai footage, and the other Rangers, who knows? Because this is when the footage was starting to look the Sentai footage was starting to look a little discolored, and then it's not good looking. And I don't know what was going on with the color grading on the Ginga Man footage starting with this episode, because this is when they were almost halfway done with the show, and filming was almost finished, because during filming of a Power Ranger season they would start filming in November in some cases, and they would be done by May, June, or July, one of the months, by the time they're done filming. Well, at least Kai made a decent, delicate rotisserie chicken, huh? At least, like, again, I'd rather prefer Kai's cooking over Mia's cooking back in Samurai. So, so yeah, that's my commentary for Protect the Quasar Saber. It was a great. It still holds up after 25 years. Also, there is no next time on Power Ranger segment for this or the next episode. So let's get on to the next episode that continues Karone's redemption story.